When I tell you to think of a Nickelodeon sitcom, what comes to mind? iCarly, Victorious, Drake and Josh? Yeah, how about Marvin Marvin or Wendell and Vinnie? In the 2000s all the way until the 2010s, Dan Schneider had an absolute stranglehold on the Nick teen sitcom genre, coming out with banger after banger after... Okay, well they weren't all winners. But there was a point where it felt like no other show could possibly compete without he or his bakery's stamp of approval. The only one I could possibly think of is Ned's Declassified, but even then, its popularity was nowhere near the levels of most of Dan's work. Because of this, it was rare for any other sitcom to truly break out and stand among the big dogs. Sure, Big Time Rush was fairly popular, even if it was just Nick's answer to the Jonas Brothers. And there were others like True Jackson VP, which I remember running for longer than usual, but more often than not, these things would come and go without many ever noticing, mainly due to them trying to cash in on trends at the time, whether it be popular internet stars or rival networks or not really understanding their target demographic. I would watch the premieres of most of these, but none really seemed to grab my attention all too much. The only one I remember regularly watching was Fred the Show, but that was more so out of my 10-year-old loyalty to the Fred brand more than anything. So it'll be interesting to look back and see if any of these managed to rival the sitcoms most associate with the network. So that's why today we're taking a deep dive into some forgotten non-Schneider Nick shows, to see why so many of them fail to make any sort of impact. But first, you should seriously consider checking out Scentbird. This video is sponsored by Scentbird. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service with a mission to empower each and every person to express themselves through scent, letting you choose a new designer fragrance to try every month for just $17. They've got perfume, cologne, and a bunch of unisex options, giving you a 30-day supply so you can try them out before committing to a full-size bottle. That would usually cost you in the hundreds. So for brands like Prada, Gucci, and many, many more, go to Scentbird.com using coupon code LSMARK for 55% off. Just over $7 for your first month. What a steal. They sent me this great selection of 3 and I've been using them daily, so I definitely recommend getting them, especially if you're just looking to spice up what kind of fragrance you're using. I really like the Harmonist Magnetic Wood, but the Mason 21G Seed Supreme and Ormond G options were also really great. I'd highly recommend any of them. For the longest time I've just been using this dinky little spray can, but with the great variety of options I've received from Scentbird, I really want to start experimenting more with what kind of fragrance I'm using. They're super easy and convenient to use too. Seriously guys, for such a low cost, why wouldn't you want to give it a try? Especially given the fact that you can use my coupon code to get over half of that price cut off, and it was already at such a steal. Oh yeah, that's right. So once again, go to Scentbird.com in the description, using coupon code LSMARK for 55% off. And thanks to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Also guys, my new YouTube's plushies are only available for one more week and then they're gone forever. They're both very cool and a great way to support the channel. Once again, after next week, no more will be ever made. So be sure to go to the YouTube site today and check them out. I was so excited for the premiere of Wendell and Vinnie as a kid. I think I would have been around 10 when it came out. Nick's biggest sitcom, iCarly, had just ended, and so naturally they'd want to transfer that audience over to something newer so they'd stick around. This was mainly accomplished with the 69-minute extravaganza I Party with Victorious, which crossed the series over with Nick's next big hit, Victorious, before the two shows eventually combined with the final spin-off, Sam and Cat, which was clearly a much more successful endeavor. As on the other side of the spectrum, we had Wendell and Vinnie, which starred the actor for Carly's wacky older brother Spencer, Jerry Traynor, featuring in a new show with him as the lead. 6 months and 20 episodes later, it was cancelled. Originally, it was made for the Nick at Night block, which was trying to appeal to the hip youth and young adults of the time. But at the last minute aired on regular old Nickelodeon, which as you'll soon see explains why they were able to get away with such depravity.
The next time I look at this monitor, there had better be boobs!
Disgusting. I think Nick were really banking on Jerry Traynor as their heavy hitter at the time, as Tough Puppy was also airing around then with him voicing the main character. But much like that series, Wendell and Vinnie really failed to make any sort of impression on the audience. Get ready for this hilarious setup. Vinnie is an obnoxious man-child who runs a memorabilia store in California. He loves Star Wars, video games, and sports. But whoa, his life is about to be shaken when he now has to take care of his nephew, Wendell, after his parents died. R.I.P. I guess. Every episode of Wendell and Vinnie that I saw follows the same repetitive structure just with the characters flipped around. Wendell or Vinnie wants to do something the other disagrees with, and their ideals clash for a while until the other eventually turns around after realizing for the 20th time that they're there to uplift each other and not drag them down. Time to forget about that so they can relearn it next episode. They don't even figure out their arcs very well, despite them being so obvious. Like, the entire pilot leads into a guy needing to come in to see if Vinny is a capable guardian, where they end on having this massive, heartbreaking moment where he smashes open his original Star Wars Episode 4 lightsaber to get the EpiPen he for some reason put in there after Wendell has an allergic reaction to some food. And it's like some big epic moment, but it doesn't exactly work because right before doing this, the guy says that everything checks out and is about to leave like he had nothing to prove here. You think he would have messed up and the guy is about to take Wendell away from him and then he shows how capable he is by saving his life, but no. That's really it. There's a surprising lack of things going on in this series. There's like 3 consistent sets and barely any side characters, other than Vinny's sister. Her whole joke is that she's ugly and desperate for male attention. Funny. Then there's their hot neighbor who's just gone through a divorce. What silly characters for the kids to get to know. The one joke they tell with her is that Vinny really wants to screw her. It's kind of creepy at times.
Whoa, what are you doing?
Did I misread the signs?
Sexual assault. Vinny is such a pervert in this show. It's more of a character trait than all the geek stuff. The first episode shows him breaking Wendell's arm because he wanted to watch the neighbor in the park.
Ooh, our neighbor's going for a jog in the park wearing booty shorts.
Mr. Lipschitz?
The entire second one sees him have Wendell take a porno magazine to school so he would have to go and visit the vice principal's office so he can screw her. Yeah, no, I'd be hard-pressed if I didn't mention it, but this show is strangely adult. You know, not like they're walking around dropping F-bombs or anything, but I distinctly recall when it first came out, I was stunned while watching it because they managed to get away with some raunchy stuff you wouldn't expect from a Nickelodeon sitcom. There's light swearing.
All this time I've been carrying my food like a dumbass.
They make jokes about beating children.
And he didn't threaten to beat me if I didn't say he doesn't beat me.
I mean, with all this filth, it's no wonder it received a dreadful 2 out of 5 on Parents' Guide for shameful content. My 8 and 6-year-old daughters were huge fans of iCarly and missed the show. When we saw that the brother was going to be on a new show, they wanted to watch it. We taped several episodes and started watching. Today they were watching, and there was a very disturbing statement. They were going to throw a sleepover party for Wendell to help him make friends. A woman on the show, maybe an aunt, went shopping for supplies. When she came back, she said that she couldn't find something, and so I bought vodka instead. I actually went in to rewind it to be sure I heard it right. What? Why in the world would they introduce the idea of alcohol into this show? I consider most of the Nick shows just fine for my kids. We often watch together, but talking about alcohol is not fine, nor is it appropriate. I am not against alcohol. We have it in the house and my husband and I have an occasional drink. But there is absolutely no place for alcohol in a show even for young children. This makes me very, very sad. So yeah, I hope you think fucking twice before showing your face around here again, Jerry.
I saw there were a couple girls in your class. Might be wearing bikinis, you know what I'm saying?
Skin cancer?
Overall though, I can see why Wendell and Vinny was such a failure. It just didn't belong on the network. And I can't see it having done all that better on Nick at Night. It feels confused like it was an adult sitcom retrofitted for kids, by inserting all this children stuff into it, when for most of the time it's focused on the grown-ups and their adventures. Worst of all though, it's just mediocre. The jokes are mainly just name-dropping some random popular franchises or referencing a celebrity, and I guess that's meant to just be the gag. I can appreciate Nick trying something more edgy here, but it was a complete failure. Especially sad considering this is one of the last major things Jerry Trainer was in. You know, before returning for the iCarly reboot. Which the creator of Wendell and Vinny wrote some episodes for. Explains a lot. Nick needs to look elsewhere for ideas at this point. They need to look towards what kids are actually into these days, like the talk ticks and the buzz tubes. Wait, what do you mean? Wherever I go, Fred always seems to follow. This is looking to be the end of it though. The only piece of Fred content I have yet to cover on this channel. Fred, the show. That's right, after the surprise success of the first and second Fred movies, Nickelodeon greenlit a full Fred TV series. And hey, it at least did better than Wendell and Vinny, a whopping 4 episodes better, wowee. I hated this show as a kid, but for some reason always find myself putting it on. Again, I loved the original Fred movie. I'd rent that DVD from Extravision all the time. But even as a 9-year-old, I could tell there was a massive shift in tone from the first Fred movie and the second. See, despite the first premiering on Nickelodeon, it wasn't really a Nick movie. Originally, it was planned to release in theaters and even did in the UK. I got to see Fred on the big screen, and that's a memory I'll take to my grave. or my therapist, both are fitting. But because of its massive success when it aired, Nick scooped up the rights to make 2 more movies and a Fred TV show, which saw only dwindling returns each time. And so Fred the show is much more in line with the other Fred movies, which sucks because the first one is undoubtedly the best, and I will never not admit that I actually think it can be pretty funny at times. What works best about it is that it was mostly aware that Fred was a freak who nobody liked. The world constantly beat down upon him, he's relentlessly bullied at school, his own mother doesn't even love him. You spend the entire time watching everybody hate the guy that you can't help but root for him in the end. Which, you know, is ruined in the last couple seconds with him actually getting the girl somehow, but still, I will stand by it being a great guilty pleasure watch. The sequels and show, however, Fred does not have much storytelling potential, a shocking statement I'm aware. But because of that, it makes it so they have to keep introducing all these new characters to interact with Fred, like new friends such as Bertha, who I'm stunned they still managed to get Daniela Monet for, especially considering Jeanette McCurdy had the foresight to abandon ship after the first film. But Fred the show follows the most basic premise imaginable. Fred is Fred. He goes to school, he goes in his garden sometimes. That's kind of it. There isn't really any kind of central theme, you're just sort of watching whatever silly hijinks Fred winds up in that episode. Honestly, it feels like it desperately wants to be an animated cartoon more than anything. All the episodes are 11 minutes, making them super fast-paced like SpongeBob or something. They all have the most simple concepts ever, like an AI was told to think of your most generic cartoon idea, with such unique concepts as Fred wants to make a love potion so he can impress the goth girl in his class. Fred watches a horror movie and gets scared. Fred thinks there's an evil version of him terrorizing the neighborhood and gets blamed for the crimes. Wait, that's just Sonic Adventure 2. It's just a very bizarre series, and I can't imagine anyone on the staff even wanting to work on it, which is why they've went for the most straightforward concepts possible. Although the low budget might have something to do with that. You can tell they're trying to get as much mileage as physically possible out of what's at their disposal. Their money shots mainly consisting of strange little dream sequences, which I can at least applaud them for trying something creative at times.
Do you want to go camping?
No, Kevin, you're weird. Get away.
Damn, I didn't know Fred was homophobic, what the hell? Dude, I feel so bad for Kevin's actor. It seriously makes me uncomfortable watching these knowing that he apparently hated filming them so much. You can just see the pain in his eyes, it's devastating to sit through. The biggest issue Fred the show has is that it's trying to make Fred less annoying and more of a likable protagonist, someone you'd actually want to see win. But because of that, they've removed what made Fred, Fred. That being that you want to punch him. And as a result, he's just sterile, it's uninteresting. I mean, hell, he can't even do the voice anymore, it sounds like someone strangling a cat.
It was you with some extra love. Oh, yeah.
It's no shocker that Fred the show failed to be a hit. I mean, you know you screwed up when finding a torrent of your series is difficult. I had to physically buy these from Amazon, I swear to God, that is not something I need on my bank statement. Also, for some reason it costs me more to buy the SD version over the HD version. It doesn't take into account what episodes you've already bought for some reason. So yeah, fuck Fred the show. I can't believe we're living in a world where we haven't had any new Fred content in over a decade. Truly is a travesty. At least we can still watch Lucas Cruikshank's new content, like watching 5-minute crafts and watching TLC shows. Okay, well, how about his music?
Puppy in my hand, puppy in the grass, and puppy in the...
Okay, that's enough of that. Well, okay, Fred being turned into a show, bad idea. But maybe that was just because of the character. I'm sure if given another chance, Lucas could play a beloved character in a much more successful series. Well, don't you worry, they unfortunately already tried that. Marvin Marvin. Nick must have been really strapped for ideas, huh? This wasn't even Lucas's fault. He apparently had no involvement in any of this. Although that also means that Nick specifically sought out Lucas to star, which was definitely bad timing considering Fred the show had only ended a couple months prior. There was really no break from him for those few years. Even still, Marvin Marvin received universally negative reviews and has the lowest amount of episodes so far at a measly 19. But when I look at the ratings, they honestly aren't that bad. At least by today's standards. With streaming and TikTok and whatnot, you'd be lucky for your show to pass 1 million viewers, and Marvin Marvin was consistently getting between 2 and 3 million, which is nothing to scoff at. So is this just a case where the critics couldn't understand the perfection that was Marvin Marvin? No.
Yeah, joking.
Marvin Marvin stars Marvin Marvin. He's an alien boy on the planet. It was taken over by... And so his parents have shot him out to Earth where he becomes adopted by a regular old family, disguising himself in the process to look like this. Honestly, the alien was more appealing.
Okay, so a dog is nail your ass.
Every episode of Marvin Marvin follows the exact same structure. I'm starting to notice a pattern with these shows. Because he's an alien, it's basically a fish out of water series, where Marvin has to get accustomed to normal human life, like going to school or getting a job. They then start telling the same 3 or 4 jokes again and again, until he learns a lesson about what it truly means to be human. Hooray. In a way, I feel kinda bad for Lucas. For his entire youth, he was typecast as a weird freak who nobody liked. Can't imagine what that would do on someone's mental health. Oh yeah, that's right.
I've been practicing my American slang for this very question. Whatever, keep it on the DL, my
Homophobic and racist? What the hell, Lucas? Look at yourself in the mirror. But really, because of the way he was typecast, it means we never really got to see him try something serious. I know that sounds kind of amusing to think of Lucas in that kind of role, but I don't know, maybe he could have done a good job, we'll never know. Honestly, it's really strange hearing him without the high-pitched filter constantly on his voice. I remember that taking ages to get used to as a kid, but I wasn't sticking around this show long enough to care about that. It's just the same thing over and over. Not even when it comes to stories. I mean, in the actual way the jokes are written, they all follow the exact same formula, which I gotta say, would get old if it were even funny to begin with. Okay, here's some writing tips, as told by Marvin Marvin. The human asks Marvin a question. Marvin replies saying something a human usually wouldn't do. The human replies, Marvin, you're not meant to say a thing human wouldn't. Then Marvin says, oh, I will comment on that now, clarifying that I understand. Repeat.
Well, Marvin, how was your first day at work?
Well, don't you remember when that customer was doing that awesome dance?
Marvin, he was choking on a pickle.
When he's not doing that, he's just doing silly, wacky things like dancing. Anyone ever see the DreamWorks movie Home? Seems like it's doing the exact same thing, although I imagine in a better way. I've never seen it though, I just know it stars Sheldon Cooper. I'm glad we as a society have managed to come to the understanding that somebody dancing against their will and commenting on that fact is indeed not the fine joke we were forced to believe for so long. Very negative today, I'm aware. I just had to watch 2 Fred shows in a row, so please forgive me. I feel bad because Lucas and the other actors are clearly giving it their all, but the script is really what brings it all back. It's just the same tired gags on repeat for 22 minutes. It's so bland that I can understand completely why it never took off. You want to know something cool, though, that added at least something to all this for me? I recognized the bully character, but for the life of me, I couldn't put my finger on why. Until it hit me. It's friggin' Bryce Walker from 13 Reasons Why. If you've ever seen that show, then you know exactly why seeing him next to Fred is so jarring. Surprise, surprise, Marvin Marvin also failed to reach an audience. And from there, Lucas was promptly kicked out of Hollywood. Even still, I'd say he had a pretty good run when you take into consideration where he started. One minute you're a loser kid yelling in your backyard, and the next you're having guest appearances on Hannah Montana and Big Time Rush, starring in 3 movies and 2 television series. Nothing to scoff at, surely. And I have to wonder if he's ever gonna make a return to showbiz. Probably not. At this point, being a YouTuber is more profitable and popular than D-list Nickelodeon sitcom celebrities. Like, what is Babe Game Shaker up to nowadays? The hell do you mean 2 million followers? Either way, Fred will forever go down as a case study on big Hollywood companies trying to capitalize on trends of the internet and failing spectacularly due to a lack of understanding of why people even liked it in the first place. Certainly wouldn't be the last, though. Cartoon Network were given the Annoying Orange Zone series, starring Toby Turner. Well, that's a topic for another video. It wasn't unusual for Nick to try and copy current trends around this time, however. I distinctly remember another series of theirs that tried and failed to do so. Ironically enough, they tried their hand at their own Zeke and Luther, which we covered last time. And boy did it suck. Bucket and Skinner's epic adventures gave me a newfound appreciation for Zeke and Luther. Can't believe I'm saying that. This was clearly their attempt at capitalizing on that epic, extreme sports sitcom trope from around that time. And much like all these other shows, it did not take off. Not long after its premiere, it started airing sporadically over the next 2 years. It was completely random, airing its first 13 in one go, then like 5 came out over the entirety of 2012. Then they dumped the rest out in early 2013, despite other countries having already finished airing it much sooner. Which was weird to me given all the promotion it had around that time. On one of the Amazon episodes, it even opens with an old Nick bumper, where the 2 main actors are among the likes of Victorious and SpongeBob and Big Time Rush and even Timmy Turner. Wow. So I can imagine Nick weren't pleased by the less than stellar reviews and ratings. Bucket and Skinner just doesn't belong in what Nickelodeon was around this time. I think this was around when the big studios realized what sells was taking a 20-year-old woman, putting them in a cast of quirky characters, make them sing a song or two, and bam, $1 million. This sort of show fit much more in line with Disney XD, to the point where I was originally going to cover it in that video before realizing it was actually Nickelodeon. Bucket and Skinner's epic adventure stars Bucket and Skinner, but their adventures are anything but epic. That's right, this was the early 2010s, where any marketing agent out there thought that putting the word epic somewhere in your product was a guaranteed path to success. I mean, just look at all these amazing episode titles. I can't pick which one to watch. There's Epic Election, Epic Girls, Epic Jobs, Epic Brains, Epic Musical, Epic Babysitters, and Epic Bobo. It takes a total of 2 words in the first episode for us to hear them utter the word.
Skinner, epic session today. Yeah.
The Zeke and Luther comparisons are blatant as well. The two characters are practically interchangeable. We have the dumb but good-hearted Bucket with his dim-witted best friend Skinner, both bonding over their mutual love of surfing.
The screwdriver has a name, Bucket. It's Luther.
I see you! The show's meant to be about them surfing and stuff, like they live in this frickin' beach town in California that seems to have a massive surfing culture around it, but I don't know, maybe I just picked the worst batch of episodes possible, but I saw no surfing. There were plenty of mentions of surfing, but it was mostly at the start and end of scenes like, whoa, those were some sick weaves we just did there off screen. Or, okay, now that the scene's over, I'm gonna go and surf some radicalized waves, bros if. Like, if there's one thing I can give to Zeke and Luther, it's that we did indeed watch them skateboard for extended periods. But here they're more concerned with doing the most cookie-cutter ideas ever. Bucket wants to win the big school election to get the girl of his dreams. They gotta get part-time jobs to pay for property that broke to impress the girl of his dreams. They gotta get into the big cool party to get with the girl of his dreams. I think it's meant to be a cringe comedy, like one of those underdog stories, but it completely fails because of their lack of commitment. It's kind of tough to make cringy jokes like that in a sitcom because there's usually going to be that exaggeration to it, especially considering the always prominent laugh track that immediately takes you out of the immersion of the world, which is important obviously, because you have to feel the pain the characters are going for. It has to be real in a way. Like look, here's a good example. In the second episode they dress up as girls to get into the cool guy's party because he lets women in, but when they get there they realize they never took any change of clothes with them so they're stuck that way. Already pretty cringy. But they try to go further, when one of them goes to get a change of clothes from the host's bedroom, but accidentally gets clothes from his little brother's bedroom, being these goofy looking PJs. Everything's escalating, but what's the payoff? He just distracts everyone and runs out the door. Cool. You want to see something like this done right? Just go watch The In-Betweeners, it's like the most perfect cringe comedy out there. There's something similar with the party the characters go to, although it's immediately made more lame with them being 16 or 17, and it being filled with under 15-year-olds. One of the characters then gets beat up by one of the kids because of something set up earlier, and before he can get his brothers and the rest of them, they all run and hide in the bathroom. And as a last resort, the main character has to go to the front desk and have them call his mom to pick them all up, which is then read aloud on the speakers in front of everyone. You know, things escalate getting worse and worse, but there's actually that payoff that leaves you cringing and covering your eyes and feel bad for them. But in Bucket and Skinner, there's none of that. Like, he's just dressed kind of funny, that's the joke. What doesn't help is the acting. The main guy just talks like rice gum half the time, and I couldn't unhear that. His acting was terrible.
Kelly, pick you up at 7, honey?
Like I said, works for me, cowboy.
Then there's a couple of recurring side characters like the girl who likes Kelly, but she mainly just exists to give them something to gawk over. Then there's their fat uncle who runs the surf shop, but the main joke they tell with him is that he's fat. Are you laughing yet? And then there's the insufferable little girl whose gimmick is that she's evil and likes money. I don't know if I'm alone on this, but I always hated that trope. It's so overdone and not funny at all. Especially when the kid always gets what they want in the end. It's annoying. You know, Bucket and Skinner's Epic Adventures was terrible, probably the worst I've looked at today. Wendell and Vinnie was just average, Marvin Marvin was clearly trying, and Fred the show at least knew what it was trying to be. But Bucket and Skinner is just the most by-the-books whatever sitcom I've ever seen, and I can imagine a lot of you forgot it even existed. I'd sum up a lot of Nick sitcoms that way. They either knock it out of the park or flop hard. Like, there were a bunch here I completely forgot about before doing this video, where the memories of them all came flooding back. Like, See Dad Run was similar to Wendell and Vinnie, where it was clearly trying to go for something more adult, which isn't a good thing on a network like Nickelodeon. Then there were the ones that I could tell were kinda big, like not in the levels of iCarly or Victorious, but were evidently the only thing to watch on the channel for a while. Like the Thundermans, which is basically just the Incredibles, or the Haunted Hathaways, which was about a family moving into a house filled with ghosts and now they have to share it. Some of those ghosts being children, which means they died as kids. Yeah, how fun. But yeah, that was when I was getting out of watching Nickelodeon regularly, so I saw them a lot but didn't have much attachment, so let me know if you'd like to see another video on some of those at some point. This really is an endless video topic supply. You'll never run out of obscure teen sitcoms. It's somewhat of a shame that these sort of shows are a dying breed. Kids these days are more interested in watching the likes of Euphoria or Riverdale, not sitcoms. So the age demographics for them are getting younger and younger to try and grab their attention, but clearly it isn't working. Like, what is Nick airing now? There's Drama Club and That Girl Lele. Am I really this out of touch? I'm just gonna keep rewatching reruns of Drake and Josh and let the kids of today like whatever the hell this is, because clearly someone has to be enjoying these things. Guys, buy the plush.